All right. Um, like I was saying, this is our first time meeting. So my name's Cece. Nice to meet you.
My name's Fireb0rn. Hello.
Nice to meet you. All righty. So, let's go ahead and get started. So when did you first start speedrunning in general, if I can ask?
I think it was early in 2017 that I started speedrunning. It was just like a few months after Hollow Knight released, if I recall correctly. I started with any percent, no major glitches.
Okay. So you didn't do any speedruns before Hollow Knight?
No, Hollow Knight was my first speed game that I'd ever done.
Nice. There's something special about your first speed game. I don't know why. It just is.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've stuck with Hollow Knight ever since then. I've started speedrunning some other games, but I always backed off of them, and I've always stuck with Hollow Knight over time.
I hear you. I'm kind of the same way. The first speedrun I ever did was Super Mario Sunshine, but I never really got into it. And then I found Pokemon Snap, which is the game that I run currently, or mostly the one I've been running for the last 5 years. And
Nice.
yeah, I just stick with it. I don't know what it is. I really latched onto it. So that was the first time I ever found a real community. So Snap is definitely like the one I keep going back to.
Yeah, Hollow Knight's the same for me. Like I just connected with the community, and I've stuck with it since.
I gotcha. All right. Anything in particular that drew you to running Hollow Knight? Because you said this was your first speed game. I assume you played the game and you liked it.
Yeah, I went through my casual playthrough with Hollow Knight, and I just been like, I think I was playing Overwatch at the time, and I just like kind of got bored of playing like all these competitive solo queue games. And I was like, I kind of want to get into speedrunning, and Hollow Knight just happened to be a game that seemed really good for speedrunning. So I rushed my casual playthrough just to like start speedrunning it, and I just kind of went from there.
Okay. Cool deal. All right. So when you first started, you said early 2017, right? Do we have like a rough estimate? Are we thinking like March? We're thinking April, May?
Um,
Not that it really matters. I'm just curious.
Good question. I can't quite remember, honestly.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I mean, you submitted runs to the leaderboard, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can go back and look at it. It's not a big deal. I was just curious.
Okay. Yep.
So, I know that there are different types of categories, right? So there's like regular, or there's like all glitches, no major glitches, and glitchless. I think there's one more.
Yeah, so the three main categories are all glitches, there's no storage out of bounds, and there's no major glitches. No major glitches used to be glitchless, but we renamed it to no major glitches because it wasn't really glitchless. There are some glitches we use, so we just call it no major glitches now because it's a more accurate title for the category.
That's fair. Okay. So gosh, I remember back in 2017, whenever the game first came out, I remember seeing stuff like, oh, these new crazy out of bounds and things. Like, what are some of the big glitches that were found pretty early on?
So there were some big glitches that were found early on that we didn't continue using, and there were some that we did continue using. So there was Thorn Warping, which is you get knocked into a transition when you have the Thorns charm equipped, and it stores your position when you get knocked into the transition, and it warps you into a different spot in the next room, which was really weird. And we didn't end up using that because it was just on the wrong patch for the all glitches run that we were doing. The main glitch that all glitches used was just called storage out of bounds, which lets you like get out of bounds in a room. As you're walking into it, you like cancel the walk-in animation, and you just are able to navigate outside the room. Like that's not applicable for true ending NMG, but
Yeah.
those are like the big things that we found early on.
Okay. Right. And so people definitely wanted to be like, okay, this out of bounds stuff is pretty nuts. Let's maybe make that its own thing.
Yeah, a lot of people for no major glitches. Like most people who play Hollow Knight don't seem to be too into glitches. Like that's true, especially of the casual player base, but it's kind of true of the speedrunners too. Like not many people are into big game-breaking glitches like that.
Okay. That is a weird thing, right? Like, I know a couple of different communities. Like, I also run Ocarina of Time, and I love using glitches. Like, the glitches are so cool. Like, doing like the Hess or like a super slide or wrong warping and all that kind of stuff. Like, all that's so cool, and it creates so many cool opportunities. But then I also run other games. Like, I also play a Command and Conquer speedrun as well. But like the community for that is really competitive, but they're like, "Oh, you're using glitches? That's not cool. You can't use glitches." And I'm like, "But I'm not competing with other people. I'm just playing against the game. Like I'm trying to go fast." They're like, "No, man, using glitches, that's lame, dude. Don't do glitches." I get flack for using glitches all the time. So
Yeah, it's really funny how different communities are like. So their opinions on glitches just vary so much.
it is weird, but anyways,
And Hollow Knight community is like really against glitches compared to other communities.
yeah. So you said you first started running any percent. When did you end up switching, or how long did you run it? When did you switch to other categories?
So I think I ran any percent no major glitches for about like 6 to 8 months or so. And that's like, it's always been the category that I've run. Like even after doing a little bit of true ending, I went back to that. The only other categories I've really looked at are just other any percent categories. I tried all glitches, but it doesn't work out on some PCs, and that's kind of changed since that point. But back then, you needed to have like a really old PC for it to work.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
because otherwise rooms would load too quickly, and you wouldn't be able to do some of the glitches. But there was no storage out of bounds any percent, which I did for like a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So whenever you first joined True Ending, or I guess before we get there, is True Ending the category you run the most, or do you run other categories more?
I pretty much only run any percent no major glitches. I ran True Ending for like a week, and that was during a
Oh,
pretty big like transitionary point for the run.
okay. You said it's a transitionary point. Can you go into that?
Yeah. So it was basically True Ending no major glitches changed a lot because of content patch, because Hidden Dreams came out. And that basically gave us some new toys to play with in the run.
Okay.
The main one being Dreamgate. So Dreamgate just lets you teleport, to any point that you've already been to. You can place a Dreamgate down and then teleport back to it.
Huh.
So Hidden Dreams releasing was like a big turning point in the category.
Okay. I only played vanilla. I never played any of the other content stuff. So I didn't even finish it, to be honest. That game's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't even get to the Dream Nail. I got I killed a bunch of bosses and stuff, and I got to the Royal Sewers, I think. So I found
that's a really fun part.
I found, what's the one, Fluky? What's
Yeah,
the
Fluke Nest or Fluke Marb.
Flukemar? There we go. I thought it was a required boss. I only later found out that it was an optional boss, and so I tried fighting that for like 30 minutes, and I got frustrated. I was like, "Fuck this game."
Yeah, that's understandable because he's like super hard if you don't have good equipment, but if you do, then he's like super easy. He's just one of those bosses.
Yeah, I did not have good equipment. I can only assume because it was not easy. It was definitely not easy. I was dying a lot.
Yeah.
But anyways, so content patch brings out the Dream Gate, and that sort of like adds a bunch of like new tools, and people were sort of rerouting things. Did you implement anything into the run at that point, or were you just kind of
Yes.
following what other people?
It was a bit of both. So when Hidden Dreams came out, people were just focused on other categories. True Ending was not a popular category at that point. And towards like a month or so after Hidden Dreams came out, a guy named Magalore 5000, Magalore 9000, Magalore 5K, whatever he's going by at that point.
Yeah.
He released a route that used Dreamgate, and the point of the route was just to rush Dreamgate as quickly as possible so you can get the thing that lets you teleport everywhere because it saves a ton of time.
Right.
And the idea is you have to get a lot of essence early on from different bosses. And the way you get essence is by killing those bosses when you have Dream Nail. And the bosses are really hard. So the route that Mag released was an extremely difficult route.
Okay.
So not many people were interested in running it at the time. It was just like, if you're masochistic enough, you can run this route, I guess.
Okay.
And one thing that Mag found was the Clawless Shade Skip, which I forget if it has a special name, but Clawless Shade Skip is pretty accurate anyway.
Right. Claw being Mantis Claw, and then Shade Skip being...
Yeah, so the Shade Skip, it's the same as the Shade Skip in any percent, but you just don't have wall jump for it. So you have to like parry the shade a bunch and do some fireball stalls in the air. It's really tricky, and it looks really, really cool. It's not insanely hard once you practiced it a bit, but it was like a really cool thing that was found at the time. And it just lets you get to Dream Nail earlier on before you go to Mantis Claw. And when you do go to Mantis Claw, then you can get Elder Who along the way. And that just lets you get a bit more essence early on.
Okay. Just to make sure I'm on the right path here. Shade Skip is, don't you die somewhere and then you use the shade to like, you sort of pogo off it a little bit to get higher, or am I thinking of something else?
No, that's right. Shade Skip is you die outside Salubra's hut, and it lets you pogo off of the shade, like you lure him into a spot and then you pogo off of him a bunch, and it lets you get into Blue Lake early on, which lets you get to Dream Nail.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've seen this in watching through runs. I just didn't know what the name of it was. And I was pretty sure that's what you were talking about, but I just wanted to make sure.
Gotcha.
Okay. So when you were running True Ending, who else was sort of prominent at that time?
1 sec. Pretty much no one was prominent because the category wasn't really run that much. The person who had world record at that time was Monsteller, and like he just played every category. I think he must have done like a couple True Ending runs. Maybe he did more. I'm not sure, but it wasn't very popular at the time, and the time that world record had was not like amazing. I think, if I recall correctly, anyway.
Okay. So Monsteller was really the only one. Okay.
Yep.
You said that was like you spent like a week or so. You spent like a week or so playing it. That would have been whenever you submitted those runs, and I think it was around January of 2018. Is what I have from the leaderboard.
Yeah, it was like a few months after Hidden Dreams came out and after Mag made his route. And I didn't want to do the route right away because it just sounded so difficult, and it still needed to be optimized a bit because Mag came up with a lot of things really early game to get Dreamgate early, and then late game he didn't do too much. So a guy named Sean PR and myself, we routed out a bit more of the rest of the run, and then it was by the time about January that we had the route like mostly figured out at that point, and I actually did a couple runs.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. That answers my question. So I guess one of my questions that I would that I always want to ask people is so you mentioned what was the name that you said you and the other person were routing it?
Sean PR.
Sean Pierre. Like, do you recommend we talk to anybody else in particular? Like maybe not just runners, but like glitch hunters or something? Like who are you like, oh man, you got to talk to this person, right? They're gonna be so cool. It was such a good interview if you talk to this person.
Monster, because he came before me, and I'd say Meg, but there's like no chance he'd do an interview, to be honest.
Okay, that's fair. Well, we do have Monster here in the Discord, and I do want to talk to him. I forget somebody doesn't want to do an interview, and it might be Monster.
It is him. Yep.
Okay. Well, at least if nothing else, I just want to talk to him. Hopefully, he'll like chat with me in a voice call. Because we don't have to record it. It's not the end of the world. But we'll see.
Yeah, he'll probably chat with you at least.
Okay. All right. So talk to him on stuff. Noted. All right. I do want to, and he's here, so that's on the docket. All right.
Yep.
I guess let's see here. What so we talked about earlier how all glitches has a bunch of like crazy out of bounds and shit. What specifically is the difference in true ending, right? Like I think no major glitches is like an hour 5 now. And all glitches would be in about 34 minutes. Like what specifically is separating those? Like what glitches are being used to cut 30 minutes off?
Yeah, so the main glitch that's being used is storage out of bounds, which I mentioned earlier. That's just canceling the walk-in animation into a room to let you navigate outside of it. That saves a ton of time throughout the run. The main time save that it has is letting you skip White Palace, skip getting Essence completely, because normally you have to get like the charm that lets you I forgot. Oh, King Soul. Yeah, it's called King Soul, and that lets you get the. Oh man, my game knowledge is not up to par.
I think it comes the Void Heart, right?
Right. So King Soul lets you get Void Heart, and Void Heart you can just get if you navigate to the bottom of the abyss, and you can jump back up into the transition. So if you have storage out of bounds in all glitches, you can completely skip King Soul, which completely skips having to get any essence at all. So that's like the main thing you're doing in true ending is running around everywhere getting essence. So
gotcha.
You just jump up, you get Void Heart, and then you can go fight Radiance.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a lot of navigation, and you don't have to fight all the bosses because you don't need to get all the essence.
Yeah, it's tons of time saves everywhere, and you just skip the main portion of true ending. Just go straight to the end boss.
Gotcha. One of the things that I almost forgot to bring up. So you talked about there was that content patch, the dream thingy with the dream gate.
Yeah, hidden dreams. Yeah,
hidden dreams. What are some of the other ones that came out? And yeah, go. What are some of the other ones that came out?
None of the other ones that came out even ended up mattering, I think. Because which patch is it played on? So it's currently true ending is played on patch 1221, which is the Grim Troop patch.
Right.
And the main reason for that is for lever skips. So the main thing that was found after Hidden Dreams was that you can like hit levers through floors and walls. And that's only like doable on a certain patch, which is 1221. And that lets you get Shade Soul early on by using dash slash to hit a lever through a wall to get Shade Soul when you shouldn't be able to.
Okay. And
Shade Soul is just a really powerful spell that lets you obliterate bosses really easily without much investment.
Which one is Shade Soul? Is that the upgraded Fireball?
Yeah, Shade Soul's the upgraded fireball. Yep.
Okay. And you said you use dash slash. What is that?
Dash slash is nail art, and it's like a really long range nail slash. So just like you can hit a lever from super far away, which you normally wouldn't be able to reach.
Okay.
And you can do that through a gate, which normally wasn't doable, but on a certain patch you could.
All right. Yeah, that 1221 is the one.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And so there were content patches that came out afterwards, but because we had to use that particular patch, it didn't matter, right?
Yeah, because of the dash slash glitch and lever skips. Well, it's not a dash slash glitch, but because of the lever skips on patch 1221, we've just stayed on patch 1221 for no major glitches forever, pretty much. And, you know, even if something does save time in the future, we're probably going to stick with that patch for, you know, the rest of the game. It's history.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, the game is kind of, they're not coming out with new patches or updates, mainly because Silk Song is coming out.
Right. They're not going to be doing any more content patches for sure.
Yeah. So at this point, it's kind of like, if current patch isn't faster in some way, then why even bother?
Yeah. Current patch should be faster, maybe in some ways, like for other categories. I forget exactly what, but there are reasons why people want to go to current patch, but you know, it's never going to happen because lever skips just save too much time.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Yeah, you'd have to reroute the whole thing because the lever skips let you go through doors, essentially not doors, but as a Metroidvania game, it's like there are certain gates that have to be opened from like the other side. So you have to go all the way around and then open it from the other side. But now you can just skip that and just open it from your side.
Yeah, you would need a different way to deal damage for sure if you couldn't get Shade Soul early.
Yeah. So I guess tell me a little bit about just spells in general, right? So if I'm not mistaken, spells are like the main way that you fight bosses, right?
Yeah, so nail damage can be really effective in speedruns, but the thing about nail damage is that it takes a ton of investment. It takes a ton of time to upgrade your nail. You have to go around getting pale ore, and it costs a lot of geo as well, and then you have to actually go to the nailsmith. Whereas with spells in speedruns, you can just go and you pick up the spell and you have Shaman Stone and you're instantly dealing a ton of damage. So that's why speedruns tend to focus more on spells, whereas if you want a really good nail build, it's going to take an absolute ton of time and you're going to need extra charms to go with it, like Quick Slash, Unbreakable Strength, and so on. And speedruns just don't really have time for that, so we can get Descending Dark, we can get Shade Soul, just like any upgraded spell, really, and you're going to be dealing a lot of damage to bosses.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be the par for the course, whatever. It's like, yeah, why would we spend 2 hours getting, upgraded nail when we can beat the game in an hour just by getting upgraded spells?
Yeah, and like in, for example, like Pantheon speedruns, like individual level speedruns, nail damage can actually do better than spells, but you have to have like a perfect build to do that, and that would just take hours to do.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So do you follow the true ending a lot, right, over the years?
A
Or
little
no?
bit.
Okay.
I'm not quite as knowledgeable as like Scurry or Visuals, but I have like kind of followed it. Yeah.
Okay. Were there any runs in particular that really stuck out? As like, oh man, I can't believe it, dude. Scurry finally got that 1:20:02 or whatever, or something.
Honestly, not really. Like I didn't follow
really?
closely enough to know like the big like breakthrough runs.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't mean that that didn't happen or anything. It just means that you kind of had to be in the know. That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know. Depends. Everyone likes to stay to their own category usually. So I don't blame you for not following every single one of them.
Yeah, and I kind of stopped following Hollow Knight like in 2018, which was when they were doing most of their runs, I think.
Okay, I gotcha. All right. So I guess sort of to wrap things up, could you give me some comments on some of the other runners? Like you mentioned Viz earlier. What are your thoughts on Viz?
Let me just think for a moment. So Visuals is an extremely dedicated runner. He puts a ton of time into doing runs, and he streams like almost every day doing runs.
Mm-hmm.
He's really dedicated to streaming. He's really dedicated to a lot of different categories. He's kind of like Monsta in that sense, like Monsteller, in that he'll jump from category to category, but every time he starts running a category, he has a goal in mind, which is world record.
Yeah,
and he'll keep running that category until he eventually gets it. He's like really dedicated in that sense.
Okay. Okay. Thoughts on Scurry?
Scurry's got like a really swag playstyle. That's the way that I think of him. He does a lot of the really cool tricks. He's not like a person who stays like, he doesn't do a ton of labbing or anything that I know of. He does practice a lot, but he does a lot of like the swag tricks. Like he does stuff like wall cling storage. Like he was one of the first people I noticed to like start doing that kind of thing consistently. And he's got really good boss fights too.
Okay. Cool. And then last but not least, comments on Monsta.
Monsta is also a kind of all-rounded player. Like he does pretty much everything except any percent because he quit because he hates the category, which that's my category, so I take a bit of offense to that. But other than that, he's mostly known for 1xx% runs. But he also has done like true ending. He'll jump into true ending and try to take world record and usually succeeds at it. He also does like all skills. He's a really, really good all-rounded player, and he has a lot of full game knowledge. Like he knows a lot about the game, and he knows like all the. He also innovates a lot. Like Monsta, he comes up with new strats quite a bit. So he is like, compared to some other runners, he's more of someone who does a lot of lab work on his own.
Okay. A real Renaissance man.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I guess the last question I have is, so you said you stopped following in 2018. Were you aware at least that Scurry and Viz were having like this world record rivalry for a while?
I was aware of it. I wasn't like following it a ton, but definitely it was interesting seeing Scurry and Viz battle a lot in True Ending because there wasn't like a ton else going on in the Hollow Knight scene at the time, so it was really cool to see Scurry and Viz like fighting over world record. Especially because Scurry and Viz, like they're pretty similar skill level wise, and they're actually kind of similar in terms of like play style too, in that they're not like they're dedicated to doing runs, and they put a lot of runs into. They do a lot of runs basically. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and they get into the zone really well, and they have good boss fights. Like they actually have really similar strengths as players. So it was really cool to see them. And True Ending's a perfect category for them too, because it's a category that has a ton of boss fights, and the boss fights are also really difficult. So it's like the perfect category for them, and just to match their play styles too, right?
Awesome. That was a perfect write-up. I think because it's definitely the perfect category, especially because it sounds like both of them are all about like showing off their skills and sort of swag stuff. It's like, you know what better way to do that than fight a shit ton of bosses just back to back to back to back to back.
Exactly. It's like a mechanical skill test kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think I should ask you? Or I guess, is there any topics that we haven't talked about yet that you think we should talk about? Because it always surprises me, because I'm always like, hey, here's my questions, here's what I ask you, and then someone goes, have you thought about this thing? I was like, I wasn't aware that this thing existed. So I don't know if you saw our last video. We had this guy named Smasher32, and we were talking, and then I said, well, I think that's about all I have for you. Do you want to talk about anything else? And he goes, well, what about the health vote? What about Fireb0rn is fun? I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, tell me more. And he had all these stories, and he had this really cool story about how he was the one who figured out if you go right instead of left, like I don't know if you probably remember the part from the video if you watched it, but the thing where he goes right and then those are the death squares, that's how they found out Fireb0rn is fun skip in the first place. That was a cool story. Like, most people didn't know that, and I didn't even know to ask. So, did anything come to mind?
Mainly, what I'd think about is Shadesoul being introduced into the route. So when Mag created his route for True Ending, I said it was the kind of masochistic route, and that was because, I said that spells, we always get upgraded spells in speedruns, and for that route we didn't actually get an upgraded spell until like close to the end, actually. So you were going around doing like these super difficult boss fights, which normally nowadays we do with Shadesoul. You were doing them with just Vengeful Spirit, like the base Fireball and the base Howling Wraiths. So no upgraded spells at all.
Right.
We're doing Failed Champion, which is like an end game boss fight, deals 2 damage if you touch him. And the fight would take like 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, Jesus.
Like constantly dodging, and if you get hit, you're totally screwed. So it was a really difficult route at the time. And it wasn't until Scurry and Viz came along that they started to use Shadesoul in the route, using that lever skip.
Okay.
And that was when the route became a lot more accessible. I think that's the main thing that prompted those two to actually start running the category, because up until that point, it was a pretty painful category to run, just because of how difficult the boss fights were with no upgraded spells at all.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. When so out of curiosity, we talked about using the nail to sort of hit the wall, or hit the switches through the wall.
Yep.
Was that only available on 1.2.2.1, or was it available at any time before that?
I think it was actually only available on 1.2.2.1. There was just like something weird that they introduced that let you hit levers through walls and floors. And just like on no other patches, like after that point, they immediately patched it out and you couldn't do lever skips anymore. And before that point, it wasn't a thing either. So it's just on that one patch, 1.2.2.1.
That's so interesting. Okay. Dude, it's the God patch.
It really is, yeah.
Someone in Team Cherry was watching, and they're like, I'll just slip this in here real quick. We'll patch it right back out, but I'm going to slip it in for just one patch.
Yeah, I kind of wish they kept it in, though, but, we'll forgive them.
Yeah, at least they gave us to it once, so that's what counts. Okay. I think that's all I have for you.
Okay, cool.
All right. Hey, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking to us. So
I appreciate you guys making the video. It'll be cool, yeah. I think.
I think so too, man.